I can grow a big plant on a moss pole like the best of them. I've shown you that I can many times, but some of you might know that I've fallen out of love with moss poles. Why? Because they are a lot of work, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You just need to keep that thing moist all the time. I don't have the time. I choose to spend my time on plants that don't need that kind of maintenance. But there's some plants like these beautiful Syngoniums that insist on having a moss pole in order for them to live their best lives. They insist on climbing. Now, my problem is I happen to love Syngoniums and I have heaps of them. I've got lots and lots of pots of Syngoniums that are just screaming for moss poles that I refuse to give them. So instead of having lots and lots of pots of Syngoniums, I'm going to have one pot with a moss pole with as many Syngoniums. No, I am not making a Syngonium moss pole. I'm not doing that. I'm just making a very, very big moss pole and trying to fit as many Syngoniums as I can on that one pole. So instead of having 20 moss poles, I've got one. That's a win in my book. So today I'm going to show you how I make a moss pole that big to take up all my God knows how many Syngoniums that I'm trying to fit on their pole, and then you'll see how I do that. Let's get making. So for my plants today, I'm using a 20-centimeter pot, a really, really big pot, and I'm really hoping that I can get as many plants as I can in that space. But of course, the most important thing is the moss pole. So I am making a plastic sheet back moss pole because I really love making them and it's easier for me to keep the moss pole moist with that particular setup. So I've got 2 plastic sheets that I cut up earlier. I didn't want to spend all this time cutting plastic sheets. And yeah, I'm using the Quill brand of plastic sheets. And every time I make this video, I get heaps of people asking me where they can get this plastic sheet. I'm sorry, I don't know where you can get it if you're in America or in the UK. It's really hard for me to look at example sheets on Amazon or something and assume that it works. I've spent hours online trying to figure this out. All I know is this is a Quill one that I get from Amazon here in Australia, and you can get them in Officeworks as well. It's the A2 sheet and it's transparent, so it's cool. And I make these holes down the sides to hold the cable ties through, and I make 2 holes right there in the middle at the top and at the bottom so I can put the cable ties through to hold on to the metal rod. Yes, that's it. And then I am going to use this wire mesh, and it's really, really long because I'm making a very, very big moss pole. And it is how many? Let me tell you. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That's 12 little squares wide over there. And I will tell you, I will put down below in the description what these exact dimensions are in centimeters. Same thing with this one. I'll let you know what that is in case you want to do the exact same thing. We're now going to do the lovely job of assembling the moss pole. So the first thing I'm going to do, the very first thing, is put my cable ties. This is a very important step, and many times I have forgotten to do this, and it just helps stabilize the moss pole as you are potting your plant up. And also if you want to do an extension in the future, you've got those cable ties there just to help, attach onto that thing. And oh, hang on, let's try and make it look nice, shall we? Make them face the same direction. There we go. Okay, so I've got 3 of them here. So that head goes there. I hate doing this kind of fiddly work, but needs must. There we go. So that is 1, right? And then I'll get my other one, and that should be 3. So these are not the normal short cable ties. See, these are a little bit longer, and I like to use the longer ones for the back because they're the ones that have to go around the thick metal rod. So yeah, it's possible to do with the small ones, but trust me, it's not fun. So if you can get longer cable ties, if you're doing this, then that's great. So I know one thing people might be thinking is, well, why do I need to do this? You can actually easily get pre-made moss poles these days. There's so many different kinds of moss poles. And I've always been one to like poo-poo buying the pre-made moss poles, right? Because I'm a bit of a moss pole snob. I really am. But I tried them And, you know, Andy from Leafy Brand said, try them, you'll be surprised. And I was so glad to have egg on my face. I tried it and it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, they're really great to use. You don't have to muck around with cable ties and cutting wire and all that kind of stuff. It's great. But this is where making your own moss pole shines, because you can make your moss pole to fit exactly what you're trying to do, the project that you're trying to do. So this one is very, very wide. I don't know if you can find a pre-made moss pole that's like this, but this one that I'm making is going to be fantastic. It is going to be splendiferous. So I'll put that here and I'll get my wire mesh now. So what we are going to do now is actually attach this to the wire mesh. And, you know, it's a little bit like a book, right? So this is where I need my little cable ties. And this is going to take a bit of a while. And I know, you know, especially if you're used to using pre-made moss poles, this is where it can take a bit of a while. The process seems to be a bit protracted and can be a little bit annoying. But, you know, I like doing it. I like, usually when I'm making moss poles, I'll just sit in my house, or I'll be watching TV, or I'll just, you know, be quiet and just be mindful. And it's a nice mindfulness exercise for me. But, you know, I know not everybody likes doing that, and that's okay. But yeah, making your own moss poles for special projects like this is really the only way to get it done. I will show you in a second, when I'm done doing this, how I was actually able to tailor this particular moss pole to the pot. I actually used the pot to help me decide the dimensions of this. So even if I give you the dimensions, it's still better for you to check with your pot, depending, you know, unless you've got the exact pot that I've got, you might find that it doesn't quite fit. But if you've got your own pot and you're just using those dimensions, that might work better. So hang on, I'll get this done and then I will show you how I did that. Okay, I have one more. All right, I'll put this to the side and I'll show you how I tailor-made that. So this is my pot, right? And I got my plastic sheet, and I want this plastic sheet to sit right at the bottom, right? So it curves nicely to my pot, and that's going to stand really, really well. So depending on the kind of pot that you have, you might need a smaller one, not one that's not as wide, or you might need a wider one, but this works really, really well. And because it's going to be a D-shaped moss pole, so you do want it to have that curve. That curve is going to be there, and the metal rod is going to be at the back as well. So in my head, this is meant to work well, but you know, what's actually going to happen might be a whole other story. Okay, so I want to put this second plastic sheet on here. Now, what I want to do is actually, what I'll do here is I'll actually remove these ones, because I think that was a bit preemptive on my part. Oh no! That is not what I wanted to do, you guys. See, this is what happens when you're not concentrating on what you're doing and you just keep blabbing. So what I did here was I made these little holes. You can see there's more holes here on this side and more holes on that side. And the reason I made these holes is I want to be able to overlap those two plastic sheets like that. Right, so that it's a really strong bond between this one and that one. And now I've only gone and done this, right? That's just the height of annoyance. So what I'm going to do is take all this off, only because I want to do it right. And I want to show you guys how to do it right. I'm going to take all that off and do it again. Oh my goodness. The good thing is I actually caught this early, if you can call this catching it early. I caught it early, and yeah, because, you know, things happen. What can I say? What can I say? This is how I need this to be. Okay, like that. Ugh. I should have thought this through. I mean, I thought it through in the planning stages. I didn't think it through as I kept yakking away. All right, so that is what I need to do. And then I will take this off and that off, just so, yeah, that is what I want. So I'm going to get my small cable tie and put it through here first. And then I'll put it through this next one over here. And then I will put it through my wire mesh so that these two are joined like that. Do you see what I mean? That's exactly what I wanted to do and then forgot to execute. I had planned it out, right? And then let's see if I can overlap this one. Oh, hang on, it's the other way. See, the heads are facing that way. I don't know. I don't, this one's facing the wrong, hang on. Where's, right. All right, they're facing that way. I'm gonna take that one out because they all need to face, yeah, I know, yeah. This is something that doesn't even matter in the whole scheme of things. No one cares that the cable ties are facing that direction. But you know, I'll know and I care. See, now the heads are facing that way. That's what we need. Okay, so there, like so. I will try and get this like so. Oh, this is just as fiddly as they come. I'm telling you, trying to do this to camera just makes things so much worse. All right, bye. That's my son saying he's going to school. He didn't go to school in the morning. I don't know why, but anyway. Why am I telling them? Because you decided to start talking in my video. Bye. There we go. That is it. And you can see how that is now moving as one unit. That is exactly what I wanted and exactly what I got. I am so happy. What I probably could do is actually maybe even reinforce it some more. I could put a cable tie in there and have it come there. Right, and, oh. See, what I wanted to do when I was making these little holes, if you're more patient than I am, you could actually make sure that they're aligned properly. I thought about it when I was making the holes and I was like, oh shucks, I can't be bothered. So I just made all sorts of random holes everywhere. But if you really want to do it properly, you could get a ruler and just like make it equidistant, you know? Don't do what I did. There, see? Like that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That looks amazing. That really does. And then I could just reinforce this. I didn't make enough holes. I stopped making the hole. I must have been distracted by something or someone, but it doesn't matter. I think you get the gist. You get the general idea. So now I will shut up and finish putting those cable ties on there. Alrighty, that is all done and that is looking really, really good. So this is the outside of my moss pole and the plant is going to sit on that side of things. So I'll just grab my scissors and cut off all these bits of cable tie that we don't need. All right, voila, that looks really, really good. So before we go any further, just turn those heads of the cable ties around so that the sharp bits don't damage our plant. So I'm just turning those around. See, you've got the head there and I just turn it around so it's facing the back. So the next thing I'm going to do is determine how much of this moss pole is going to be in my pot. And that's because I don't want to fill up the whole moss pole with sphagnum moss. So just about there. I've marked that spot with my texture over there. That's it. So I'm going to fill this part of the moss pole with the substrate and leave the rest of that to go into the pot. So for my substrate, I'm using a combination of sphagnum moss and tree fern fiber. And sphagnum moss is really a fantastic moisture retaining substance. Tree fern fiber also retains moisture, but it soaks up moisture easily too. So when I combine the two, I get the best of both worlds because sphagnum moss becomes very hydrophobic when it's dry. It's very, very hard to rehydrate. So I'm going to put my substrate here, not too much for now. Not too much because I want to do something different with this moss pole. I want to try something that I'm hoping is going to work to help me keep it moist because as you know, keeping moss poles moist is really a very big problem for me because I don't have the time to deal with that. So I'm going to try something different today and hope that it works. People say it does. I don't know. All right, so I've got some moss on here. It's not the final amount of moss that I'm going to put on there, just enough, just a thin layer, maybe about a centimeter or two, maybe two, let's call that 2 centimeters, right? So if you look at this plastic sheet over here, I've got these 2 holes on one side, 2 holes on another side. And with these 2 holes, I'm going to attach some wicks. This is a wicking material. This is a microfiber. This started off life as a mop, and I just got all the little bits of mop. See, that's what that used to look like before. Maybe that was a double strand, that one. That's how that looked. And what I've done with the top bits of that strand, so let me double back and say one important thing. So these holes are on the moss pole, the part of the moss pole that's going to be at the top. Remember, this is the part of the moss pole that's going into the pot. So I'm going to have this wick go here and go all the way through that substrate and go and dangle into the reservoir. That's my plan. And by doing that, I am hoping that I'll be able to keep my moss pole a little bit more moist than normal. So I don't know, people say that it works doing something like this. I've made 2 little holes in my cloth. This one over here, this is the one that's going to the top. And I'm going to use a cable tie to thread this through and attach it because I was laying in bed thinking, how the heck am I going to get this to sit there and not move, you know? And I thought, do I put some hot glue? What do I do? What do I do? And then I thought, well, you know, I think this is a job for my trusty cable tie. There, you can see that's in. There, see? And that is my wick. And this, I just tied it together, honestly. I mean, you could sew it if you're really that, you know, bothered, but I wasn't that bothered. So I just cut off that bit of that cable tie and voila, I am happy with this. Now, I just need to find the one that I had made the holes earlier for the other one. So I'll just, and this is literally all I did. I'm just tying it like that. Like that. And I'll attach this one. Use my trusty cable tie. You know how much I love cable ties. And now I just need to tie one more piece because this one's not going all the way down to the reservoir. And da-da! Job is done. And now all I'm going to do is put more of my substrate on top of this. And so there's always going to be something that's moist inside that. Is it going to work? Your guess is as good as mine. Good as mine. I'm actually starting to think maybe I should have made the bottom layer a bit thinner. I don't know. Hey, it's done now, right? It's done. There's nothing I can do about that. I mean, I could start again, but I am not doing that. I think I'm happy with this. I mean, you could do a better job. I hope you do a better job than I have if you're going to do this. But I'm just being a little bit impatient right now. But there. I am very, very happy with this. Okay, so now comes the big test where we have to close that. So this is where my cable ties come in again. I'm going to use a big one just to get that started because it's, you know, it's always a problem getting that first cable tie in to get the whole thing going. Oh, there we go. I like it. I like it already. Oh, yes. Okay. You can see what that looks like already. That looks really, really good. Now, before I go off and do this when you're not there, I want to remind you of, you know, remember how I had the two plastic sheets overlapping on this side and I got that cable tie into one and then the other before I put it in the wire mesh? I'm going to do the exact same thing on this other side so that it is completely reinforced. So there and into the wire mesh. And there, that is exactly what I wanted to accomplish. So that's good. And I'm now just gonna put all the other bits of cable tie and I'll be back when I'm done. Right, all the cable ties are in place and my pole is looking really, really good. So I'll just cut off those bits of redundant cable tie that we don't need. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that is my pole and that's what it looks like at the bottom. And you've got those little dangly bits that are going to go into the reservoir and hopefully, maybe that will keep the moss pole moist. I have no idea. So I have quite a number of plants that I'm looking to put on that pole today. Some of them are plants that have been propagating for a long, long, long time. That's my Syngonium batik. And I just, you know, look at that. Lots and lots of propagation. Some of these would have come from my Syngonium moss wall. If you don't know what my Syngonium moss wall is, just take a look at this video. I made a very, very big moss wall with all sorts of Syngoniums on there and it did really, really well. I've got some other ones here. I don't even know what they are anymore because they're all just so mixed up. I love those little pops of pink going there, so that's going to be really nice. I love this one. That has got to go in there. It's got some roots there. I think that should do okay. And I think I've got a panda. Oh, yes, that's it. That's a Syngonium panda in there. That's going to go in there. I don't even know what that is. I'll try and put it in. But in addition to these, I want to put some of my other Syngoniums that you will have seen rather recently. So this is my Syngonium matcha sprinkles. That needs a moss pole, and look, to be honest, it's actually like bent over. I don't know if it might snap when I try to transition it. I don't know. We'll see. That's definitely going in there. Another one that I've got in here is, this one is my red spot tricolor. I love this plant. It's doing so well. Look at those roots. Amazing, right? But it's never going to realize its true potential unless it's on a moss pole. So that is going on that moss pole. I can't give it a moss pole because I just can't be bothered now. And, hang on, who are you? You are my Syngonium confetti tricolor. That one. That is also going to go on that pole. Now, I know you're thinking, and I'm thinking the exact same thing, there seems to be too many plants. Yeah, I know. This is the problem. This is why I'm trying to do this, because I want to get rid of some of these. So see, that is a Syngonium that's really ready to go on a moss pole. And I'm going to try and fit as many as I can on there. Oh, some of these are so, I don't know, I think this can go on. This is a grey ghost. That is a Syngonium grey ghost. It's okay. There's actually, is that 2 plants? I think there's 2 plants here, which is good. So maybe I can put one on there and keep the other one. I don't know. I've got a strawberry ice and something else, but I think this is more than enough. We can't fit any more. We just can't. Okay, I now need to prepare the plants that are still in Leca. Take that Leca out and check what's happening with the roots, and then clean the roots if I need to. So I'm just really taking all the Leca off, and I'll give that a wash. That looks really good. That's fabulous roots over there. And you can see that plant is ready to go. So things like this, I'm just gonna pull that off. I don't need that. There's no point in starting off with little leaves like this, bring nothing to the table. So off you go, and that's how that one is going to sit. So make sure it's got no Leca. There, next one. Look at this is the one I'm really worried might actually snap. This is my matcha sprinkles, but oh, that is lots of roots in there. Just gently taking the Leca off. Right, that's off. And that's the root system for that matcha sprinkles. See what I mean when I say it's completely bent over? Because I did not give it a moss pole. The plant was just so desperate, and it just started getting really small leaves. It wasn't looking great. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not too hopeful. Now look at this one. Look at how stalked that plant is. That Syngonium confetti tricolor was crying out for a moss pole, literally crying. That's the root system over there. That's looking really nice. And look at those little leaves there. Right, red spot tricolor. Shucks, look at that. Look at that. How amazing is that plant? All right, that is my red spot tricolor over there. But this next one, which is my grey ghost, is in a pawn perlite sort of substrate. And see, it is nice roots over there. But this is the one where I said, I think that's 2 plants there. You can see this is a little one over here, and that's the bigger one. So the roots of that little one, see, oh, there we go. Excellent. That's come over there. So I could actually cut this and have 2 plants. So I should get a pair of shears. I've got my shears, and I'm simply going to detach the tiny one from the big plant. There we go. So that tiny one is quite happy to live on its own. I'll keep that. And then I've got this one. So this is the one that's going to go in with all the others. So I will take these plants away, give their root systems a good wash, and then I'll come back. We'll position the plants, and we will do that all magic repotting. Okay, I have washed my plants, and I'm now ready to go. I'm going to position them on my moss pole before I put the moss pole in my pot. I've got some little butterfly clips here that I'm going to use to help me keep the plants in place, keep them exactly where I want them to be. So remember, this is the bit of the pole that's going to be in the pot. That's where I want my plants to be. So this one I probably want to sit there, and I'm going to attach that to there. So that doesn't move. That's where I want it to sit. I mean, look, I'm not deluded. I don't think I'll be able to get all these plants on here. I'll try my best, but it might not be good enough. And I might need to get rid of some leaves. So look at this one here. I'm going to get rid of this leaf just so I can position the plant well, because not everybody is going to be able to join the party. Yeah, that sits there. And I'm just going to use my clip to make sure it stays in place. So that is looking good. Oh, what else do I want here? I really do love those pinks, and I want those pinks to shine. I really, really love a pink Syngonium, and I'll turn this one around like this and have that one sit there. That looks good. Okay. So you stay there. Stop moving. See, I've got this matcha sprinkles here. Let me see if I can do some magic. And oh, I really think this plant is going to break. The stem is so woody. And it is just, I'm thinking I might just cut that. I might cut it just where it bends. I'm gonna cut it right where it bends because I won't be able to get that to sit flat. And I'll just, oh, hang on. That actually has a root there. I might put this one. No. This one. All right, I'll keep that one. And what I'll do is get rid of some of these little growth that's coming at the bottom there. Get rid of those and have that sit like this. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, sit like that. And I will position that there. And look, until these plants really start to grow big and go out, it's going to be a bit crowded there. But we knew that going in. I think that can go there. I think we need a bit more pink to go with that next. Right, there we go. And I'll just use my clip, and that clips in there rather nicely. That is pink. I am going to have some pink over here. Use my clip. Okay, that looks good. That tricolor needs to be here. I'm gonna have to move this one a bit that way. And I think I can just about squeeze in the tricolor. All right, tricolors there. I don't have a panda on there. I really, really want the panda to go on there. But look at that. Wouldn't that be lovely on there? That's the panda. The panda just got to squeeze in there somehow. You got to squeeze in there, buddy. Squeeze in, squeeze in. Make room for the panda. Do you know what's really interesting about this? I don't have a mojito on here. How is that? That's insane. All right, we'll just leave that. But what about this one? I would really like that to go there. It's already stalking. All right, I'll squeeze this one here. I don't know if I can squeeze any more, to be honest. I think it's done. That's probably the last one. So what I'm going to do with these now is I'm just going to pot them all up in the one pot. Not put a moss ball, just put them up, just so I can deal with that later, because I don't have the bandwidth to deal with this today, because after I'm done making this moss ball, I'm going to need a drink. Right, now that I'm done putting my plants on my moss pole, I'm going to attach my metal rod to the moss pole. Normally I like to do this before, but it's just so hard to do these things. So I'll start with the top because it's easier for me to access that one. So I'll just loosely close up the cable ties. Remember those cable ties that we put on before? Right here at the bottom as well, just to make sure that that is well attached and it's all just working as one unit. So I'll fix that as well. So not too tightly, so I've still got, you know, room to maneuver. I can move it up or down, and I know I need to move it up because this whole bit actually is going in the pot. So that is going to need to go like that. And then I'll just do the rest of them. Just move it close to the edge of the table. Freeze that up a bit. There I go. I'm sorry you can't see this. It's a bit difficult. There. And I think it's okay for me to leave it like this. I'll fasten the others once I get the pole up. Before we start trying to put this vertical, it's nice to just give a little bit of a test, you know? So if I need to adjust things, I can do that while it's still manageable. So that is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. Exactly where I need everything to be. So I'll just fasten the cable tie right at the bottom there, because that metal rod is exactly where it needs to be. I'll just make that tighter. That is as tight as I can get it, and I'll just clip off the redundant bit over there. That is exactly where I need with that. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill this portion of that moss pole with Leca clay balls. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to fasten that up so that that's nice and closed. Okay, I'm just closing off that moss pole right there at the side there so that it makes a nice complete unit. And hopefully this will help it to become a little bit more stable in the pot, because this is a very heavy, awkward pole and the chances of it falling over are very, very high. So getting it really heavy down at the base should help with that, in theory. So this is the bit of the process that I actually detest, because, you know, Leca being Leca, it's got various sizes and sometimes it goes through those holes in the mesh pot, in the mesh. So yeah, wish me luck. So as I lifted up moss pole, some of the substrate on the other side fell out, but you know, I'll put that back. I'm not doing a very good job of this, am I? So I'm trying to get the wicks to be actually sitting in and amongst the Leca. So have some of the Leca underneath the wicks. Oh goodness, so much easier to do with my hands. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness. Oh my. Telling you, people growing their plants in soil don't have these problems. They just don't. It's so much easier to deal with moss poles in soil, which is why when people are watching videos on how to make moss poles and things, and they're looking at the things that people who grow their plants in soil are doing, sometimes it doesn't quite translate when you're growing your plants in Leca clay balls, because you have to do some things to help your moss pole become a little bit more stable that someone in growing their plant in potting mix just doesn't have to deal with, because that's just not even an issue for them. So yeah, this is one of those things. All right, so if I do that, all right, that goes there. Go in, little children. Okay. All right, now, the thing is though, where did I put my pot? Because if I, oh no! Did you guys see that? You probably saw that before I did. The good thing is it's the one that was right at the end. So I'm just gonna, you stay. There we go. Like I said, I don't know where I've put, oh no, it's falling off. See, what I'm worried about is I don't, oh! Do you know, I've been looking for my pot. This whole time I've been a bit distracted because I was worried that I didn't have my pot close by, and yet it was right there this whole time. Shucks, I'm telling you, I am not having a good day today. This is the best that I can do because I don't want to do this anymore. So I've got that sitting there right at the bottom. I'm going to try and put more leca in there. So when I stand it up, it's going to not all the leca is not going to fall out. I'm telling you, look, I know there's probably better ways of doing this, but if you've watched any of my videos, you will know by now that I'm not great at lateral thinking. Not great at all. So I will try and do this. Right, so get some of that leca there. And I will push my table down just so I can try and stand it up a bit more. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I still got leca in my mesh. And, right, so yes! Ha! All right, so I put some leca at the back. And yes, it's gonna take me like 30 minutes to pick up all that leca. Remember my little acrylic stick? I use that to shove all the leca into that space. This has gone so much better than I could have ever hoped. Honestly, it looks amazing. So that is my metal rod back there. And all I do now is fasten that to the moss pole and make sure that that's nice and tight. And that whole thing operates as one unit. It is amazing. And it just reminds me of, you know that guy from that TV show, The A-Team? Yeah, I know, I'm showing my age right now. Their leader, the guy with the white hair, he always used to say, I love it when a plan works together or comes together or something together.
I love it when a plan comes together.
This plan has definitely come together. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And get rid of those cable tie thingies. And honestly, I think that looks really, really beautiful. What I will do now is there's this one over here, that stalking. I need to attach that. I'll attach that to the moss pole so it can start to grow into the moss pole. Beautiful. Now we're going to do the next thing. We're going to put this baby into a reservoir. This is the reservoir that I have for this plant. It is going to hold my 20 centimeter pot really, really well. I've chosen a heavy ceramic pot. It doesn't have a hole and it's glazed all the way on the inside, so it's going to be able to take my nutrient solution. So I'll put my table down and I will position it and show you how it looks. So one of the reasons I decided to use a ceramic pot for this plant is because that moss pole is very big. It's quite heavy. I don't need it to fall down. I need it to be as stable as it can possibly be. But you know, as you can see, it's standing up really well right now and it's probably going to stay that way. But as added insurance, I've got a ceramic pot. It's really heavy and that just helps keep the plant stable. So I grab my, I probably need to put my table down a little bit lower because it's hitting the ceiling right now. So I'm going to pull it all the way down and then I'll bring it back up to show you because I need to lift it up to put it in. There we go. Okay. I'll stop there. Whoa! Right, so now I'm going to fill up my reservoir with my special sauce. And it's my special sauce right now because I've been mucking about with this, okay? I've been mucking about with the roots. I want those roots to be happy. And I'm just going to, you know, I could also see how easily See how easily that just absorbs. It's so nice. It's going in so easily. It's beautiful. It's all just soaking right in. So those plants are just going to be loving this moss pole. And I'm hoping that those wicks are going to do their job. You know what? Oh, I damaged that. I did. Oh, well, I fixed it. We're going to pretend that didn't happen. But I was just thinking, maybe I should have made those wicks wet before I put them in there. That's an idea. I think that will probably work even better. I don't know. But when I put this plant a lot further down, I am going to moisten that moss all the way from the top so the whole thing is wet. I will take it out of that cache pot because I don't want my plant actually just dying of too much water, which it can. But yeah, I'm absolutely loving this. I will keep you updated on how this plant is going, but I think for now, this is a lovely way of getting many of my Syngoniums to climb up on a moss pole. I know you love Syngoniums. Go and check out some of my beautiful Syngoniums in this next video. I'll see you there.